Russia had long believed that its strategic depth, its vast geography, and its layered defenses made its critical infrastructure untouchable. However, in the early hours of February 18, 2026, something fundamental shattered that assumption. A single chain of coordinated strikes exposed a vulnerability so severe that, for the first time since the beginning of the conflict, Moscow chose silence over response. What was lost was not just a facility, not just a network, but control itself over a system that had quietly sustained Russia's entire war effort. The images you are about to see on your screens tell a story that official statements refuse to acknowledge. Satellite footage, verified by multiple open-source intelligence groups, reveals vast stretches of scorched terrain deep inside Russia's Belgorod and Kursk regions. What you see is not random destruction. It is precision. It is planning, and more importantly, it is proof that something critical has slipped beyond Moscow's grasp. But that is not the most shocking detail, because what was targeted in these strikes was not merely infrastructure. It was the backbone of Russia's operational continuity. And understanding how this happened requires going deeper into a timeline that Moscow itself is desperately trying to obscure. On February 17, 2026, at approximately 0240 local time, a coordinated wave of long-range unmanned aerial systems crossed into Russian territory. According to preliminary assessments from the Institute for the Study of War, these were not standard drones. They were hybrid long-endurance platforms equipped with fiber-optic guidance systems, rendering them nearly immune to electronic warfare disruption. Their targets were spread across three key logistical hubs: the Veluiki rail junction in Belgorod, the Sudja fuel storage complex in Kursk, and a classified communications relay node believed to connect frontline units with centralized command structures in Moscow. These locations were not chosen randomly. Veluiki serves as one of the primary rail arteries feeding Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. Sudza contains reserves capable of sustaining mechanized operations for weeks. And the communications node, while rarely mentioned publicly, forms part of a hardened network designed to maintain command integrity even under nuclear conditions. By 0415, all three sites had been hit. Fires burned uncontrollably. Rail lines twisted. Storage tanks erupted into massive fireballs visible from over 20 kilometers away. But the real damage was not visible from the sky. The technical execution of these strikes reveals a level of sophistication that marks a significant shift in the conflict. According to analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the drones employed were likely operating in coordinated swarm formations, utilizing decentralized targeting algorithms. This means each unit could adjust its trajectory in real time based on battlefield conditions, avoiding interception and ensuring maximum impact. Russian S-400 air defense systems, designed to intercept high-speed ballistic threats, proved ineffective against these low-altitude, slow-moving, and adaptive targets. Even more concerning for Moscow was the apparent failure of its electronic warfare umbrella. Systems such as the Krasika 4, previously considered effective against Western drones, showed no measurable disruption capability against fiber-optic guided platforms. This represents a technological bypass of one of Russia's key defensive doctrines. In simple terms, the shield no longer works. And when the shield fails, the entire structure becomes exposed. But this is where things begin to escalate beyond the technical, because the destruction of these sites triggered a cascading effect across multiple operational layers. Within 24 hours, Russian units operating near Kupiansk reported severe ammunition shortages. Fuel deliveries slowed dramatically. Command units experienced intermittent communication blackouts lasting up to 90 minutes. These are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of systemic disruption. This tactical success quickly translated into operational paralysis. Ukrainian forces, according to battlefield reports cited by ISW, began exploiting these gaps almost immediately. Mechanized brigades advanced into previously contested zones with minimal resistance. Artillery units, facing reduced counter-battery fire, increased their rate of fire by nearly 35% over a 48-hour period. The result was a rapid shift in momentum across several sectors of the front line, and yet Moscow remained silent. This silence is not accidental. It is strategic, because acknowledging the loss of control over such critical systems would not only expose military khamsori, it would also signal to both domestic and international audiences that the war has entered a new phase. A phase where Russia is no longer dictating the tempo. A phase where initiative has shifted decisively. To understand the full implications, it is necessary to step back and examine the broader geopolitical context. Russia's war effort has always depended on depth. Depth of territory, depth of reserves, and depth of logistical networks. This depth was meant to absorb shocks and sustain prolonged conflict. However, what we are witnessing now is the erosion of that depth. Precision strikes are compressing the battlefield, bringing the rear into the front. According to a recent CSIS report, the effective operational depth of Russian forces has shrunk from approximately 120 kilometers at the start of 2024 to less than 60 kilometers in early 2026. This is a dramatic contraction. It means that areas once considered safe are now within reach. It means that supply lines are no longer secure. And it means that every movement, every transfer, every concentration of resources becomes a potential target. This shift also has significant implications for alliance dynamics. NATO intelligence assessments, while not publicly detailed, have indicated increased confidence in Ukraine's ability to conduct deep strike operations independently. This reduces reliance on Western-provided long-range systems and signals a maturation of Ukraine's indigenous capabilities. At the same time, it places additional pressure on Russia's allies, particularly China and Iran, to reassess their level of support. But beyond the maps and the numbers, there is a human dimension to this transformation. Imagine a logistics officer stationed near Kursk. For months, his role was routine. Trains arrived, fuel was stored, orders were transmitted. The system worked. Then in a matter of hours, everything changes. Communications go dark, supplies vanish, commands become unclear. The structure that once provided certainty dissolves into confusion. This is the psychological fracture point. Wars are not only fought with weapons. They are fought with confidence, and when that confidence begins to erode, the effects ripple outward. Soldiers hesitate. Commanders second-guess. Systems slow down. According to intercepted communications referenced in Western intelligence briefings, Russian units have begun requesting redundant confirmation for basic orders. This is a sign of mistrust, a sign that the chain of command is no longer functioning smoothly. And this brings us to the most critical question. What happens next? If current trends continue, the coming months could see an expansion of these deep strike operations, not just in border regions, but potentially further into Russia's interior. Industrial facilities, energy grids, and transportation hubs could all become targets. This would mark a fundamental escalation, not in terms of intensity, but in terms of scope. At the same time, Russia faces a difficult set of choices. It can attempt to reinforce its air defenses, diverting resources from the front. It can increase electronic warfare capabilities, though current systems appear insufficient. Or it can escalate asymmetrically, targeting Ukrainian infrastructure in response. Each option carries risks. Each option reflects a reactive posture rather than a proactive one. And this is where the silence becomes most telling. Because silence, in this context, is not strength. It is uncertainty. It is the absence of a clear response to a rapidly evolving threat. It is the recognition that something critical has been lost, and that regaining it may not be straightforward. The control that Russia once exercised over its logistical and operational systems is no longer absolute. It has been challenged, it has been penetrated, and most importantly, it has been exposed. The contradiction that began this story now becomes clear. Russia built its strategy on depth and resilience. However, that very depth has become a liability in the face of precision and adaptability. The systems designed to protect are now too slow to respond. The structures meant to sustain are now too rigid to adapt. So the question remains, can Moscow regain control over what it has lost? Or has the balance shifted in a way that cannot be reversed? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The events of February 18, 2026 did not just mark a successful strike. They marked a turning point, a moment when the invisible foundations of a war became visible. A moment when silence spoke louder than any official statement. What are your thoughts on this development? Do you think Russia can adapt to this new reality, or has the strategic balance already shifted? Share your perspective in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video for more in-depth geopolitical analysis. Russia believed its control was unshakable. Today, that control is no longer certain. Presented by TGN. Thank you for choosing us.